Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Suited and Booted. I'm your host, Drogba. To my left.
Little Huzzy.
To my right.
Number 10.
And he's back from Paradiso.
CFO GD.
What is he wearing?
Welcome. The
What?
Fijian kilt.
Wearing the rainbow and a Fijian kilt.
It's amazing.
Gavin, he's dressed like he goes to a really strict girls' Catholic college.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
Dressed, hey? Didn't even think of that.
like kind of like strict from waist down.
I wasn't the popular
And then
one.
above it's like just
Yeah,
be yourself.
it's a party in the top.
Yeah, like,
A bush doof up the top.
bro, do you know what I'm thinking? Because we've got a guest coming on. And this guest is obviously a respected figure.
Yes.
And Gavin's dressed
Yes.
like his first thought of what Gavin is going to be like as a person is all I can think about.
That's why I came in a black tracksuit. Because it's like, just...
You were nervous.
Yeah, just like a... Can I just say, speaking of business on the bottom, party at the top, that reminds me of, have you guys seen Harold and Kumar?
Yeah, what a
Where he's like, hey, put a t-shirt on. What kind of a sick party do you think this is? It's a bottomless party. So like, you remember that scene?
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
I know.
Anyway,
What is
I
that,
don't know.
Kumar? It's like 5 O's or 2 U's.
Yeah.
What a movie.
You know, the best part of Harold and Kumar is when he goes, I've been an American citizen for 30 years. And he goes, listen here, buddy, I don't know what you're saying. They're speaking some sort of rare Korean dialect.
Wait, is that the cop?
Yeah. He's like, my name's
Cop.
Harold. What a name.
Yeah,
Great name, Harold. Yeah, bro, what a film.
Anyway, what up? Guys, before we get into this, make sure you 5 stars on Spotify. Man, I don't care if you don't eat this week, don't drink water, don't say hi to your mum. Do this. This is the most important thing. 5 stars on Spotify. Am I right?
100%.
Yeah, 5 stars. Yeah, 5 stars above like health.
Don't pat your dog.
Bro, don't breathe. Also, go follow Bootin' About. That's BOOTN. Bootin' About on Instagram for behind the scenes and tomfoolery and fuckery. So go follow Bootin' About because that's where you need to be.
And that account is run by the Kit Man, by the way.
And that account is ran by the Kit Man.
Yeah, he's great folk.
Great folk. Yep.
Yeah, great folk.
Guys, just quickly, man, how's your week been?
Mine, good.
Great answer.
Mine, good.
Okay, Gavin, give us a quick rundown on Fiji.
Quick rundown. Best part of Fiji.
Yep.
So obviously I went to Fiji for the wedding, right?
Yep.
I had a wedding down there.
Yep.
And the best part I still remember that every day they gave like the activities board. So the Fijian guys would write out the activities board.
Yep.
And there was this old fella with a crayon, right? Talking about crayons at our last pod.
Were
He's
we?
writing down.
Yeah, we did. We said they should ban crayons at the primary
Oh, that's
school.
exactly right, yeah.
He's writing like copying and writing English, obviously onto the chalkboard that they've got there, writing down all their activities, and it's wedding day, so very important day. And Ming turns to me and goes, "Gav, am I passing out? Because he spelt wedding wrong." And obviously I'm not the clearest, but anyway, I look at it and I go, "Yeah, I don't think he spelled it wrong. I'm pretty sure he spelled it wrong."
Yeah.
And he wrote weeding. The weeding ceremony. And I just looked at the Fijian guys and I said, boys, you're going to have to tell your mate that he's wrote weeding, not wedding. So he did double E instead of double D.
The fact that you told someone how to spell something.
The Fijian guys just started pissing themselves. And for the rest of the trip, they were all going, hey, Mr. Weeding, Mr. Weeding.
He got called
Bro,
Mr.
I love foreigners. They find the simplest shit funny.
Yeah.
Did he
So
say
we
they
were
were
in
writing
tears.
with crayon on a chalkboard?
Yeah. How old
Is
was
that-
it? Was that like
can
a
you do
4-year-old
that?
wedding?
Can you do that? Like, does that work?
Crayon on a chalkboard?
Yeah.
No, it would have been chalk.
he
Sorry,
means
I just
chalk.
fucked it up.
I did say crayon.
Actually, you know what, Jake? He did.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
anyway.
meant chalk, though.
And then,
Anyway.
like me, I like to get involved with the culture, as you can see.
Well, yeah.
You know what? I was just
Mr.
doing a wee
Appropriator.
before and I thought that. When I saw him, I'm like, Gavin loves assimilating to a
love
culture.
it.
What was the
Loves
best thing? What was
appropriating.
the best thing about their culture
Yeah, maybe that's a better
that
word.
you instantly started doing like every day or?
Oh, the best thing was definitely the
Hula Vinaka.
Yeah, the how nice they were to everyone is actually ridiculous. It's almost like, why are you actually being so nice? Like I questioned them at one time. I said,
thought they were robots.
Surely there's someone that actually pisses you off,
Yeah.
and like
It's
takes
you.
advantage,
Yeah.
and then you get annoyed at them. You
Fuck,
know?
he's been in
And
the
they
MGL
don't.
too long.
They don't.
Can't
Right.
accept niceness.
You
So-
just can't be nice. Like, yeah.
So then I
I
did
get
buy the
what Gav's
Sulu,
saying.
and I actually got given this by one of them because all of them were like, "Hey, you got the Sulu on? You got the Sulu?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm just getting into work now. I'm going to start my shift." And I was just taking the piss. And then he was like, "All right, tomorrow I'll bring you the shirt. Bring you the shirt." And he ended up giving me this shirt.
Speaking of Fiji, we actually got a DM, and I'll be meaning to get back to this guy. We got a DM from a guy that runs a page called Fijian Footballers or something, and he basically focuses on all the Fijian footballers around the world, and he says that he's got some info for us on the Oceania stuff, so I will get back to you. So that's that little Fiji.
We said we wanted to go, like, when that tournament starts.
Gav, link it
that's
up.
one of our destinations.
I did connect
it up.
some dots over in Fiji. So
Were you
Contact
trying
the
to play
weeding guy.
football there?
No, he did.
I
He
did.
didn't try.
We definitely played football.
Really? Did you shake a ball?
Yeah, took a ball. Played for about 4 hours. Wow. Great. It's unbelievable, Fiji. Honestly, if you haven't been, got to do it.
So you know what? I got to give it to you, man, because you went from selling croissants in Portugal, living on
20
about 90 cents a
euros.
day, and this past year, I reckon you've been to 3 or 4 tropical locations.
He's conquered
just
Asia.
living
Yeah,
life.
you drop Gavin in
conquered
a
Asian
prison,
Oceania.
man. Day 2, he'll be playing table tennis with his shirt off and have
Yeah.
16 different mates, man.
But
Yeah,
I did.
simulates this
And I
guy.
also got this jacket for free. Crazy enough, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we paid for that one, but yeah,
I mean,
technically.
you're
How
welcome.
crazy is this? Hey,
But thank you.
Actually, that's actually Jake's
I
money.
think you would have been nice, eh?
so this is free. This
Yeah.
is actually free.
And what about the Celt?
The Sulu I bought, but then you know what else? I actually brought this today.
Oh my
which I
God.
thought is pretty impressive.
I haven't, I haven't
God.
seen the
What
below.
could this
I
possibly
drove
be
in.
now?
Hold up. Everyone turn around except Gav.
Okay.
Everyone turn around.
My neck.
Turn around,
Everyone's
please. Turn around.
Like actually don't look at him.
I'm going to need a rub and tug after this.
All right, now look at him, boys.
Oh, wow.
Bro,
Wait, why is it
What's
signed?
going on?
bro, can I just... What?
What?
Wait a second. Can I just say, as we're doing...
What?
It's got all signed.
Oh, sorry.
Wait, he's got the tags on. Wait, just as we say this, right? He's a Newcastle Jets fan, right? Western United's beating Newcastle right now 4-0.
Right now.
And he's just pulled the Newcastle Jets top off, and he's wearing the team that's beating his.
Luke's not going to... What's his name?
I feel like that was what was happening in the
Did
cheer
you-
squad of Newcastle
did you-
anyway,
did-
wasn't it?
What?
Everyone had
CFO
other tops underneath.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly
Did
right.
you get the DD CFO on the back?
Was making moves when we went down. Shout out to the chairman. Shout out to the club. Shout out to the kit man, Ruth, that on the day we went down to watch them, I did my little moves, little talking here and there when I was with Jake.
What
And,
the fuck? I got a scarf.
Bro, that's actually... How good is that away top?
How did it get printed on the back? Though?
So what happened?
Can you take
is
the
I was
tags off,
sitting
bro?
down, right?
He wants to return it just in case.
I'm keeping this. This is CFO move, right? So when we were there, right, we were sitting there and we were talking to the boys, talking to all the players. Ruth comes over, the kit man, right? You need a kit man like this man at every club because I'm sitting there and the first thing he goes to me, Gav, where's your mate? I go, man, they took it off me at the door. He goes, I'll be back. He comes back with my mate. Right?
Oh,
Within 2 seconds.
Within 2 seconds.
With your weeding.
And then he just goes, "Hey, I know my way around here. Whatever you need, you just tell me."
And you said, well, in that case, I want a signed jersey from the whole team with my name on the back. Now what?
I just want to reiterate my point before about our guest who's coming on this show. Now going to see Gav in a kilt, a Western top that's signed with the tags hanging out.
Oh, the whole team.
And his
And the
Newcastle
shoes.
jacket
Gav,
just
put your
laying on the
feet up.
floor that I paid for, that he's supposed to be, the club he's supposed to be loves, that is currently down 4-0 to the top that he's
So
wearing.
exactly right.
It was perfect timing because now I've come to my senses.
Yeah.
And the goal is this: my new local team, because I never had a local team,
Yep.
is now Western United because of the treatment that we have been given.
Yep, okay.
That's respect. That's
So,
respect.
Shout out to Western, shout out to Mel, shout out to Ruth and everyone at the club. Also the boys for signing it for me. And getting CFO Denise on the back is actually ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that's gangster.
that's
That's very
crazy.
cool.
Have you felt any guilt since our visit there of the wonderful old man we met who thought you played for Western Sydney Wanderers? He
did. He had
you,
one trial.
and you pretend, without going into detail.
last week.
I played with
and
Rashid
then
at
you-
Western Sydney, apparently.
Yeah, and then you started name dropping people,
Yeah.
and convincing him of these
So I have
no
played
names,
in the
as
A-League.
Jerome's characterization was people that pretend that they know someone that's not real.
Yeah. My dad.
Any guilt at all? No.
No, definitely not. Because he had a good time that day.
Shout out your dad, actually. Saw him yesterday at Thunderverse South. Man, he gets in with the celebrations.
Yeah, he told me. He called me the other day. He's trying to get in the rooms.
Who does
Yeah.
he go for?
He's
He
an
goes for 2
all-rounder.
teams.
He was trying to get in the rooms.
He does the celebrations.
Yeah,
What do you
Kev was
mean?
in.
He gets in the.
Kev had a
in the
training top
change
on.
room.
Really?
He had Gavin's old.
Yeah, I
Look,
stole that.
For multiple clubs.
yeah, he's a clubman, journeyman. They call him. Yeah. Can I just say quickly?
So let me just make it clear.
oh, yeah, you
Western
go.
is my local.
Yep.
Newcastle is my A-League team.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, so can you do that?
Yeah, but it's Gav.
Yeah.
Okay.
Only.
As a hypothetical, who would be?
You know why that's
like-
also really bad? There's only 13 teams.
Well, that's exactly right.
So he goes for 20% of the league.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's hard for him to lose.
Yeah.
But I have... we're making some moves. Shout out to Newcastle, even though they're 5-0 down right now against Western.
Are they actually 5-0?
5-0
Did
down.
it just become 5?
Yeah. If they make top 6, I reckon we're on our way.
I don't reckon you're allowed. I don't reckon you're allowed in.
Guys, we just thought we'd do a little intro about what's been going on. But today we are actually here to speak to a very important man, Mr. Ian Greener.
You got to cast it here, Gav.
Head of the VIS, and now
I was
heads
wrong.
up
They're not.
an association, I guess you could call it, an organisation that is trying to take heading away from football, basically. I
Yeah.
believe that's,
We believe.
yeah, because of the data and the effects that heading has on the skull, the brain, the human anatomy. So that's what we're here to talk about today, and we're going to get some answers for you guys. So
He was the Victorian Institute of Sport head coach for probably, I don't know how many years, but if I'm going to just guess and say 15.
Yeah.
And produced a lot of the current Socceroos.
Yep.
Past Socceroos. It was renowned to be one of the best institutes in the country. So
there you
Yeah.
go.
Very
There you have
special
it.
guy.
So we're going to get into this in a second. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Suited and Booted. Today we are joined by a very special guest, Mr. Ian Greener. Ian, how are you, mate?
Great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Beautiful.
The second reason why we wanted to have you on today, Ian, was because you came in and gave a talk at Rowville about what you're currently doing, and I was just blown away by that talk.
HEADSAFE.
Yeah, HEADSAFE. And so maybe you can give a little bit of an introduction to these boys and everyone at home. What's going on?
Yeah.
with what you're doing.
Again, I probably got to go back. I signed at Middlesbrough in 1972. In 1974, one of our senior pros retired, a guy called Bill Gates. He was the centre half. Bill was the first young player, first teenager. He signed for £50 a week for Middlesbrough in 1961. £50 a week, never been known. A teenager in the UK. Man United wanted to sign him, but he wanted to sign for his local club, Middlesbrough. So he signed. Bill was the centre half, played for Middlesbrough till 1974, till he retired. He retired because he was continually getting headaches. He retired at the age of 30. He was a very clever man. He was an accountant, but he set up a sports business after he retired. And the sports business boomed. He finished up having 5 shops. He sold that in the mid-80s for about $5.5 million. And he became a multi-millionaire, bought property in the Cayman Islands, bought property in Florida, traveled the world, fantastic life. But about 7-8 years ago, I should say, he started to develop real health problems. And the family investigated, and his family started to look into this concept of what they call repeated head impacts, which leads to CTE, which is the chronic traumatic encephalopathy. So this is the condition that it first came to light, I guess, in about 20 years ago. Jeff Astle, who played for England, centre forward, played for West Brom, played for England. Jeff Astle died, and the family wanted to know why he died. There was a coroner inquest, and the coroner came out with the decision that he died because of heading soccer balls. And that was 20 years ago, Jeff Astle. His family then took up the cause about trying to find out more details about why this had happened. The movie Concussion came out in 2010 about the gridiron football. So this has been going on, which I kind of knew about, but I hadn't really taken much notice of it. But again, because I shared a changing room with Bill Gates for a couple of years, I knew of Bill Gates, but I didn't know the full story. Anyway, because of my football contacts, my mate was the academy manager at Middlesbrough, a guy called Dave Parnaby, for about 25 years. Dave has recently retired, but every year that I go back to the UK, I always catch up with Dave, and we sit like this and have a coffee and just chat football and talk football. And we were sitting one day, and this gentleman walked across, and Dave said, "Oh, that's Nick Gates. That's Bill Gates' son." I said, "Oh, well, I played with Bill." I said, "I'd love to." So anyway, Nick came back, Dave, and introduced us, and this was a couple of years ago, and we just sat and started talking. And then Nick started to explain about what the family have been doing. And the scenario is that when Bill started to develop these conditions, about 7-8 years ago, Bill got his family to promise him that no other footballer would go through what he was going through at that time. And he was progressively getting worse and worse and worse. It started by just forgetting where he put his keys, forgetting what day it was, forgetting names. But then he started to really, really become a form of dementia. So the family formed an organization. They formed a charity organization first, but then they actually got involved with the research that people were doing with regards to repeated head impacts. With our sport, it's heading a ball. With rugby and football, it's tackling. And with other contact sports, it's just the head knocks, which have appeared. So HEADSAFE was formed about 6-7 years ago. Nick, the son, Nick's leading the organization. There's 3 arms to it. One is that there's a charity that's raising money to support families who have to put their loved ones into care because they need it from the dementia point of view. 2 is that they're doing and working a lot with the research in trying to find out more about what's causing this problem. And 3 is they're the only group in the world that are doing the education with regards to the link between repetitive head impacts and CTE. Now, it's a very controversial subject because the English FA have buried a lot of the information for years that they don't want to know about it. Other people are turning a blind eye. But as I mentioned there before, sports science has changed the way football operates now. We do different things because of sports science. We train differently. We get players to eat different foods. We get players to recover in different ways. We do match analysis because of science. So science is now just starting to catch up with this situation of CTE. But it goes back, 1928 was the first case, but it was only linked to boxers, to boxing, and it was called punch drunk. The boxers were punch drunk in later life because of the hits which they were having. HEADSAFE, though, have been working very, very hard over the last 4 or 5 years to work on the research with regards to what's causing this problem. And the problem that we now find is that repeated head impacts are causing the brain to move in the skull. And as it moves in the skull, the axons and neurons in the brain are stretched. Now, within the axons and neurons, there is a protein called tau protein, T-A-U, tau protein. We need it because it's part of brain health. But what happens is that when the head moves because of a head impact, the neurons and the axons stretch. And as they stretch, some tau protein leaks out. And over a period of time, if you have more repeated head impacts, more tau protein leaks out from the axons and the protons, because that's what sends the electrical messages that people can then make a decision. Because if you talk about coaching, the first thing which we talk about coaching is decision making. The brain is the most important part of our body, more than the legs or the arms of the body. The brain is what's going to control our movement. So over a period of time, the tau protein comes out, but it starts to clump. It starts to form solid, and that's what stops the signals getting through. And if you have had any experience of a dementia patient, sometimes they just switch off. The message just doesn't get through. And my mum, she had dementia for 5 years and passed away, and you could see it progressively getting worse. But what's happened over the years is that a lot of footballers have developed dementia, but it hasn't been investigated. Now, with Bill Gates died a year and a half ago. Bill actually passed away. And the coronial inquest, it took a while for the coronial inquest to be held. But when it was held, the English Football Association turned up with QCs and KCs, Queen's Counsels, King's Counsels. They turned up with a huge legal group because they wanted to shut down the coronial inquest.
Wow.
They didn't know, and this is what really went against them, they didn't know that there was somebody from the Daily Telegraph in the public audience. So they turned up, and their statement that's been just hammered back in the UK, their statement was, they said to the coroner, this is legal people, they said to the coroner, it's not in the public interest for you to determine why Bill Gates died. That was their comment. It went absolutely ballistic in the UK. The government stepped in, and the government told the English FA that they had to be part of the solution, not the problem. They needed to now work with these people to find out exactly what's going on here. The most recent case is Gordon McQueen, who played for Leeds United, Man United, Scotland. Gordon McQueen passed away recently. The family had the coronial inquest. That's been deferred because they want to find out more information. Now, getting back to Bill Gates, when the coronial inquest was adjourned, the coroner then wanted to know more information about Bill Gates and about his football career and about the training. Nick got in touch with me, and because I'd shared a changing room with Bill for 2 years, even though it was back in the 70s, Nick wanted to, and he certainly talked to a few more influential people. Like at that time, in the changing room, there was people like Nobby Stiles, who played for England in the World Cup. Graham Souness was with us. Bobby Murdoch, great players. So Nick got a few of the more high-profile players to write a report based on what we did at training back in those days. But he said to me, would you do one? And I said to him, Nick, I was never a header of the soccer ball. My position was a winger. I played wide. My job was to knock it into the mixer and let them fight for it. I didn't head the ball much. He said, no, he said, seriously, we've spoken to a lot of experts. Can you please just sit down and think about what your training program was? What did you do? Write it all down and submit it. So I took a week or 2 weeks to sit down and looked at all the stuff that we did back then at training. And when I put my final report in, I said, I can't believe it. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, I figured that on a normal week of training, I would have headed the ball about 400 times. Now, they reckon Bill headed the ball 100,000 times in his career. So we've put these reports in. The coroner's got them now. They've set a new date for the next coroner inquest. But with Gordon McQueen's, again, that's been put on hold till they can get more information. There's a lot of research that's going on. I brought some information there that I've got the top 20 research papers that have been sent to me because I need to know more about what this is. That there is an issue. But what we have to be careful of is that we don't put the fear out there that heading a ball is going to kill you. What we have to come from is brain health. We're talking about brain health. But what we're talking about is the research shows, just like ordinary training, most injuries happen in training, which is why, and it's difficult, senior players don't want to wear shin guards in training. But I would insist seniors need to wear training guards, need to wear shin pads in training because most injuries occur in training. Most headers occur in training. So the simple thing is HEADSAFE are not about banning heading. Heading is integral to our game. It is a unique part of our game. It needs to be protected. What HEADSAFE are all about, is to protect heading in a game by minimizing the amount of heading in training. And the education that we're trying to get out to coaches now is minimize the amount of heading in training. And that way we can certainly say that we're protecting our players. But the brain health is the stuff that we did at the VIS decades ago. Fluid, hydration. Are you getting plenty of sleep? Are you eating the right kind of food? If you're stressed, how do you minimize that kind of stress? So we're coming from a brain health point of view, but we have to also look at the fact that we have to minimize the amount of heading in training.
Yeah, well, that's interesting, because when I first heard about it, instantly my silly brain went to, oh, they want to take away heading. But it's not that. And
No.
think of how many times do you header the ball in a game. If you're a winger, you might not header the ball at all during
Yeah,
a game.
that's right.
But in training, I remember when I was younger, throw the ball to your partner and header it 10 times. And then you do that all year. And I hated heading the ball. To this day, I hate hitting the ball. And they would always say, oh, it's not because you're not using the forehead and you're letting it. And I'm like, every time I head the ball, I'm out of it for at least 30, 40 seconds after it. I'm like, where am I? And I always used to think, oh, you're just weak. Everyone else does it and they don't complain. But 100,000 times, like Bill Gates,
The wild thing
Something's
for me
gonna happen.
was my initial reaction was, well, we're not like getting hit like boxers are, and I think a lot of people have that similar reaction, right? But then when I thought about it, I realised I remember distinctively after a grand final at Melbourne Victory. I won't say which player, but a player that was integral to our win. Said to me, I got to go home, can't do the celebrations because I've got a migraine. And it happens to me every time I header the ball a lot in a game. And I thought back to that and I was like, oh, wow, there actually is circumstances where people talk about it, but I never really made that connection. Maybe you could talk also about some of the stats around...
There are myths and there are facts. There's some people say that the reason a lot of footballers got dementia, the old kind of footballers, was we played with the old leather ball, which when it got wet, it got heavy and then it hurt. It never rained every game you played with a leather ball. So, but the ball weighs exactly the same as it did then to what it does now. In the last World Cup in Qatar, the ball manufacturer, they were advertising the ball as the fastest moving ball. They advertise that. So again, let's look at science. The science is now, if the ball is moving faster now than it was, the force on the head now is more than it was with a leather ball. So that's the first fact rather than the myth. We also say that we don't head the ball as much now because we're playing out from the back. Playing out from the back. You look at some of the games. The ball is in the air still quite a lot. There are still headers to be won there. There are still challenges to be won. Let's not get confused. Concussion is something different. Concussion is when there is a clash of heads. You can see that there's damage being done, whether it's blood. The old picture of Butcher, who played for England in World Cup qualifying, his blood-soaked shirt,
Renowned
just
for
heading
it.
the ball and whatever. We've changed things over the years. We now have a concussion policy, which is great. But it's also, did you know that netball have a concussion policy of 21 days?
Ours is 10, I think.
21 days. And you wouldn't have thought that's a contact sport. And
Well,
yet
yeah.
our contact sport has a certain period of time, but not 21 days. So we need to catch up a little bit more to protect our players. We need to make sure that there is adequate time for recovery. But with CTE and with the repeated head impacts, people think it's an old disease. It's going to appear when you're 40, 50, 60. It might do, but it starts when you're young. But you can't see it because you're getting this build-up, which is going to happen over 10, 15, 20 years. There was a case a couple of years ago, Heather Anderson, an AFL footballer from the girls. She played for the Adelaide Crows. She was 28. she committed suicide in 2022. 28 years old. She had one of the worst cases of CTE. You can't diagnose CTE until after death, which is why thousands of footballers have gone to their grave without the investigation showing that they had CTE. They would say they died of dementia, but it would be in a particular part of dementia, which is CTE. But now that we're catching up, we now have brain banks. There's one in Sydney, there's one in Boston, and there's certainly one in Glasgow. Professor Willie Stewart is the guy that's leading the research with HeadSafe. He's examining brains from all over the world, from all sports. And they are finding that CTE now is occurring very much in younger people. If the family's donated the brain, it's occurring in young people. The youngest that they've found it, I think, is 17 years old.
Wow.
So it's not an old person's disease, it's a young person's disease. And it's repeated head impacts. So again, it's not just heading a ball. It's rugby's got a problem because of the head contact. Footy's got a big problem. But it's not concussion. It is something that is happening, but you don't see it until later on.
Well, that's interesting because a lot of parents say, I might put my kid in soccer because, rugby or AFL is a bit too, injuries could happen. But you don't realise how many times you're heading the ball. It could happen in soccer as well. But I got two questions, Ian, because this is really interesting. The first one is, are you saying, the association, no heading at training or reducing?
Reducing the heading at training.
So with that, and, I've probably got the least, I've obviously got the least experience here, but how much do you really need to train heading?
Yeah, and I was going to ask what type of, if there is a way to work around it, what type of training would you suggest? Because I think all of us that have played, when the goalkeeper kicks the ball out and you go up for the 50-50 header, they're the worst of them to take.
Yeah, they're horrible.
With young players, can I go back even 20-odd years ago? With young players, I've used balloons.
Yeah.
I've used foam balls. I've used softballs. Or I've not pumped up the balls really hard on certain days. However, it's all about just minimizing the amount of heading. Did you know that there is guidelines in the Scottish Premier League for heading?
Oh, really?
What are they?
Well, you see, this is with the Scottish Premier League, what that they're saying is that they don't want any players to head the ball the day before a game, and they don't do heading the day after a game.
Okay.
Now, again, going back to the Bill Gates time, the thing that we used to love at Middlesbrough, we would train. We'd go and train up at the training ground. We would come back. We might have an afternoon session, but in most cases it wasn't. But if we didn't have an afternoon session, we would love to play head tennis.
Yeah.
We'd stay at the ground, set up a net, and play head tennis. You could have headed the ball 200-300 times. So, but let's still keep playing head tennis, but let's only have one header per rally.
Yeah.
So you can minimize it. You can still play the game, but you can still protect the way that we go about. Again, one of the practices that we do sit-ups. Okay?
Yeah,
but every time you come up, you head the ball.
Yeah.
Well, don't head the ball then. Just do sit-ups.
Yeah, that's not really helping
I
you with
never-
heading as well, is it?
I
It's
never,
just giving you
ever-
CTE.
That's some stuff I saw in She's the Man or something, and I'm like, I never understood this drill of the sit-ups and just do sit-ups. Like, but
That's right.
But even going back to my question of, okay, how much training can you actually do around heading? Like, I feel like obviously there are certain things, you want to head it down. If you're trying to score, and then the clearance headers or whatever. How much do you do at your academy with heading training?
A little bit. We definitely
Yeah.
play head tennis, but it's
what's-
hard. Obviously, it's an important part of the game, so you do need to learn it to some extent. You
Well,
need
what
to be
are
able
you
to judge
learning?
the flight of the ball.
Okay. Yes.
Can I say as well that over the years, and I've been coaching, so my first badge was 1977. So it's nearly 50 years since I've been coaching. I've made every mistake in the book. I have made you learn from your mistakes. In the last couple of years, I have learned so much about something that I didn't know about. So all we have to do, and I'm still fighting against what I used to do because I used to love teaching heading because it's a great part of the game. It's an exciting part of the game. But what we have to take on board is the science is now showing us that there is an issue if we don't do anything about it. So the education is, let's educate coaches to minimize the amount of heading that we're doing, and make the good slogan is make every header count.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you were saying about
a good way to look
the
at it.
goalkeeper knocks the long ball up, and there's a bit of playing to the crowd. The big centre half wants to come charging towards the ball and just want to power that header, and the crowd go wild and think he's a hero and brilliant. All right. From a coaching point of view, why don't we educate people? If it's not a contested header, why not step back, take it on the chest, get on the floor, and let's start playing.
Yeah.
So we can change the strategies from a coaching point of view. If it's a contested header, it's still with the HEADSAFE last year. I think it was last September. Okay, go back. The first rules of football came about. Do you know when they were?
Like in the FA laws,
Yeah.
like 18.
There's a price for this. Come on.
73.
£10.
18. I'll go
I'll
with.
throw £10 on the floor.
I'll go with 1866.
I'll go 1873.
1881.
1890.
1863.
Oh,
The first rules were brought in 1863. All right, so they've all, and it was in a place called Sheffield. Did you know that you could actually catch the ball in 1863?
yeah, as an outfield player.
Yeah.
Oh,
You
I
catch
had
it
no
on the floor and
idea.
play.
That's a
I'd be a pro.
All right. The grounds have changed. Markings have changed.
Yep, yep.
There used to be. Did you know there was 2 half circles for the penalty area?
Well, okay.
Yeah.
I know where
And
you're going
there was a line
with this.
in front of that as well.
Yeah, yeah,
See, football's changed. The offside rules changed.
yeah.
So if the rules have changed, we can continue to keep changing the rules to protect the game. But what they did was, back in England, in September, they invited sports scientists, medical people, doctors, physios, footballers. They played a series of games. The first quarter of the game was the 1863 rules.
Wow.
They played the game. The media were there. There was a lot of coverage by Fox Sports. It got a lot of media coverage. First quarter was 1863 rules. All right. Second quarter was they could only head the ball in each of the opposing penalty areas.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So you could still, and
Corners.
the first goal scored was a header from a cross.
Yeah.
You could only score if you headed the ball anywhere else. It was a free kick.
Yep.
Okay. The third quarter, no heading whatsoever, anywhere. All right. And the fourth quarter, they threw it open to the people that were there. Can you come up with some ideas of how we could change the actual rules? All right. When they played the second quarter, when they were scoring from just inside of the penalty boxes, the game looked okay. When they took away heading, the game was awful. Mm-hmm. So they all realized we can't take heading out of the game. We need to protect heading in the game because it is such a valuable, and it's an exciting part of the game. Yeah. It's brilliant. So, again, they are researching, they are talking to people, they are trying to get the conversation going. We need to keep heading in training, but we need to educate all our stakeholders. We got to make sure that we've got activities happening that protect our players, that coaches know exactly what they should or shouldn't be doing, but that we move forward in a safe environment. Because we tell coaches that the first priority is you have a duty of care. You have a duty of care not only to yourself, but to your players. And if it means that you have to educate yourself and change the way that we do things, most coaches, when I've done coaching courses, when they've come along and they've never done a coaching course before, most coaches coach the way that they were coached. So if they were coached by an old-fashioned coach, they would tend to be coached. They'd start to implement things that they were coached by. I had a coach at Middlesbrough, going back. You could only volley the ball a certain way. All right? This is true. 2 household bricks All right, you put 2 bricks on the floor like that, and you put the ball on top of the bricks.
Oh my God.
And then you have to kick through the bricks to make sure that your foot goes through without kicking the brick. To kick the brick, to kick the ball off the
straight
brick.
and laces.
Yes, yeah.
What?
So what if you don't do it right?
You break your toe.
Yeah.
Definitely duty of care in that one.
Now that's one thing I didn't take it to my coach. But what I'm trying to say is that the game has evolved. The game will continue to evolve. Tactics are changing the whole time. But if the science is now telling us that there's an issue here that we have to be cautious of, and again, it's not about fear mongering. It's about, that's the most important. You can play a game with one arm. You can play a game with a crook ankle, with a crook knee. You can play a game with an injury. You can't play a game without a brain. And unless we protect the brain, and again, it's the stuff that we were talking about 20 years ago at the VIS, brain health. Making sure, hydration, make sure that you're sleeping well, that you are eating the right kinds of food, that if you experience a migraine, if you have a headache during a game, then you come off the ground. What rugby's doing now, and some of the sports are doing some fantastic things. Rugby Union have just finished the Six Nations back in the UK. This year, they started last year, all the players are wearing a special mouth guard. All the players who are playing in the Six Nations are wearing a special mouth guard that is linking up to sports science people on the sidelines. If the head of a rugby player suffers a knock above a certain force, it shows on the mouth guard. All right? And there's a certain...
Like a threshold, yeah.
Yeah. If a player gets a knock above that threshold, they have to be substituted straight away.
Yep.
So some sports are really doing some scientific stuff to protect their players. If a player has a headache, you need to do something about it. The coach needs to do something about it. Because I've heard so many stories, what you've said, of players playing a game, the ball's there, you head it, and for about 30, 40 seconds, you got tunnel vision. Or after the game, I've got a bit of a headache.
Yeah.
So the Scottish people have said no heading before a game, no heading 24 hours after a game. The English are given guidelines, which again, you can sort of...
You can bend those.
So it's not mandated, it's a guideline. Now, how you monitor it, in the Premier League, the guideline is that for the Premier League, the players can only do 10 high-forced headers during the week. How do you monitor that?
They're not doing that. I can go on YouTube right now and prove that
But
wrong.
that's
It's
why...
just so typical pre-game. You practice corners.
Absolutely.
You practice free kicks.
Absolutely.
One team's defending, one team's attacking.
I can think back at the Middlesbrough days, because I was a winger, I would have to practice my crossing. And my centre-half and centre-forward would want to practice their heading. So for 10, 15, 20 minutes after training, I'd take loads of balls out there. I'd be knocking in balls. They'd be just coming and heading. So we can change the way that we do things. One of the coaching workshops I did last year was with a high-profile coach back in the UK, and it was just when I was starting to learn about this HEADSAFE. And we're talking about something else. But at the end of the chat, I threw him a bit of a curveball. And I said, look, I just want your opinion here. And we were still on air, so everybody was listening. And I said, look, HEADSAFE, blah, blah, blah. I said, how would you manage practicing set plays now? Because the number one reason why goals are still scored now in the game is set plays. Yep. Set plays is still the reason why goals are scored. Set plays is one, crosses, diagonal balls, next. But so you must have to either practice defending set plays or attacking set plays. So I just threw it in. I said, based on what you're now finding out with regards to HEADSAFE, how would you monitor working on set plays? And he had to think a while, because I didn't give him any notification for this question. And he came up with a decent sort of thought, because he said, from an attacking point of view, you're working on the delivery, but you're also working on players making runs into areas and arriving at the right time. So what he said was, well, maybe every now and then, as the players make the runs and whatever, catch the ball. Don't head it, catch it. So maybe head every third or fourth one. But let's get these runs right based on the timing.
If the delivery
So-
is good.
Because it doesn't matter if you're headering or not. If the positioning's not right, you're not going to get there anyway. So
yeah,
it's,
so he was coming up with, at least he's starting to now again, I don't have all of the answers. HeadSafe don't. But what they want to do is engage in conversation so more and more people can talk about this, and together we can come up with, these are the guidelines. We have to work by this. But the main thing is the science is showing that there is an awful problem with repeated head impacts that leads to CTE. In footy, in recent times, Danny Frawley, high profile, committed
Wow.
suicide.
that was tragic. Yeah.
Yeah, took.
Yeah.
And there's more and more cases. And the problem is that the CTE changes your personality. Gridiron in America have got a major problem. I sat on a Zoom call. I was invited a couple of months ago, and there was 12 groups from around the US, but they were all gridiron people. And they were talking about what they were doing, education, blah, blah, blah. And one of them showed us this helmet. And he got quite emotional. It wasn't his son's helmet, but it was a friend of his son's helmet. And it was a gridiron helmet. And the marks on the helmet were incredible. Now, they think that wearing the helmet is protecting them. It's causing more damage.
I was going to say,
It's causing more damage.
so when we were younger, when I played AFL, they made every single kid at the club under the age of 16 wear the Peter check. The Peter check.
Yeah.
Headgear.
The headgear. It wasn't like an NF. Obviously, it wasn't like a gridiron one, but it was the one that sort of covers the side of your head and all.
It could help if there's a medical problem like a cheekbone fracture or
Right.
an eye socket. So there are ways when you can actually wear that. But
But you're saying it doesn't necessarily help in the terms
Well,
of the impact.
what they're trying to do now in the gridiron game is that they're trying to design different helmets for different positions. So if you are one that's tackling the whole time, they're trying to come up with a better design helmet, which is going to help them. But the sad thing is that the CTE is leading to suicides. There's a lot of people committing suicide because of
Have
the
you
pain.
guys have you seen Concussion?
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
For the listeners at
incredible.
home that aren't sure of like the severity of what Ian's talking about with CTE, Concussion's an incredible movie that depicts the personality.
Will Smith, isn't it?
Yeah. The personality shifts and like the complete change of character and the steep and fast like downfall.
Can I just ask you, Ian, what are the statistics of footballers that are developing CTE in comparison to the general population?
Well, I knew you. I've got some research here, which again,
He's always prepared. Always prepared.
I don't want to misquote, but Dr. Willie Stewart came up with a report in 2019, I think it was, and then for the last 3 years, I believe he's been trying to go finally through his report to try and, to a certain extent, try to disprove what he's been saying. Because what he said was that footballers are up to 3.5 times more likely to suffer CTE, dementia, than ordinary people. And if you played in a certain position, like a centre half or a centre forward, your score goes up to more than 5 times more than the normal public. There's been surveys done across Sweden, across Scotland, where they've researched tens of thousands of people. So it's not just small groups. They have researched large amounts of people. The one thing that we have to be careful, and again, we have to try not to put the fear out there, but for some reason, female brains take longer to recover than male brains. So that's one of the researchers that they found, which is why probably netball have gone to 21 days with regards to. But there is a lot of research done that. So Willie Stewart spent 3 years trying to disprove his findings. He looked at, was it lifestyle that's causing the CTE? Was it drugs? Was it food? Because of all the chemicals now which we take. Was it stress? He's looked at all factors, and what he's come up with was he can't find anything else apart from repeated head impacts that's causing CTE. So that research was, I think it went out in the public domain the end of January, so it's fairly recent. That research is going to, I believe, increase the volume of the conversation that's going to happen this year. Now, I stepped away from FCA in November because I got Nick Gates to come out here for 3 weeks, and we had Nick here in November, and we took him around. We did the ACHPA conference, which is for the teachers at Monash, over 2 days. He gave a presentation. We spoke at various clubs just to start the conversation. And I stepped away from FCA because this is a topic that is controversial. I have a really good relationship with FCA. I've got a very good relationship with Football Australia. I respect Football Australia. I respect Football Victoria. And I'm in the process of continuing a conversation with the stakeholders. But it is a conversation that needs to happen, and it's a conversation that I believe needs to happen sooner rather than later, because we all need to come up with guidelines that are going to help and protect our game. And again, HeadSafe are not about banning heading. They are about ensuring heading stays in the game, but not at the demise of individual people.
Yeah, again, like what you said earlier in the pod about there's fact and there's opinion. If the science is saying that's what's happening, then it must change. Like, there's no ifs or buts about it.
Do you think, Ian, there's an age group, from in your opinion, is there an age group where you would consider it the individual's choice of whether they want to head the ball, however frequently they want to head the ball, as opposed to a child that potentially doesn't understand the full scope of what dementia might mean, and then the coach is putting them through those drills?
The problem is the challenge is at the moment is it's not just what they do when they're with us, when they're with your academy, when they're with my training session. Kids are going to suffer head knocks throughout the week with regards to, they might, like, I go back when Brian Robson and I would actually meet up after school, we'd play football, we would head the ball to each other loads of times. Kids would be heading the ball to each other outside of a normal training session. So it's not just what we're doing, it's what other kids are doing when they're not being supervised by
No, I'm meaning more like at a senior level. Because, for example, me personally, would I change now how much I head the ball for myself? Not for the kids. For the kids, definitely, 100%. For myself, it's kind of like, for example, I do MMA, right? I know that has potentially a negative effect on my life long term, right? But I enjoy MMA, so I still want to do it. I think a lot of boxers and martial arts sports would say the same thing. They know there's risks associated, they still want to do it. Would you say at a senior level there's an element of like that it's kind of up to them at the senior level whether they want to participate in heading or not?
HeadSafe spoke to a lot of people, people that have come on board now who are supporting the research and supporting more conversation. Alan Shearer's on board.
And he headed the ball a lot.
Kevin Keegan is talking about we need more research, not so much more research, but we need more guidelines brought in to actually protect. They spoke to a lot of the high-profile players. One was Tony Adams, who had a great career at Arsenal, and a few people were put that question: if you know, or if you knew then what you know now about this, would you have done something different? Most of them said no. We would have still played because of the glory, because of the success, whatever. So, but I think you've got to give people the opportunity of making that.
It's the awareness, right? Yeah.
That call. They've got to know that there's a possible problem. If my coach is telling me I've got to head it 60, 70, 80 times. But again, if coaches know that we're going to minimize the amount of heading in training And if we start to educate people that instead of a full contact header, if there's nobody around, if I can step back, take it on my chest, get it down and play, then the game's going to look a lot nicer than this powerful centre half that wants to come and just show he can head the ball 40, 50 metres in the air.
Yeah, I think
Is there a I guess more risk for a developing brain for sort of the kids that are playing for their brain health in regards to heading? Like, is there any point in them heading, say, from the age of under 13 and under?
What they're going to do in the UK, in England, is that they're going to phase it out. That they're going to work up to the 12s. So at the moment, I think it's 9s. There's no heading. Next year's going to go to 10s. Next year's going to go to 11. So they're going to work it. So in 3 or 4 years' time, there'll be no heading up to the age of 12.
Is that in where? Sorry,
in England.
Wow.
The challenge then is, and again, we don't have all of the answers, is that going to make a coach who has a 13 and 14-year-old team wanting to do more headers to make up for the fact that they haven't been doing heading? So there's a lot of challenges still ahead of us. Again, this is a conversation and the reason that I've got involved with this in the last couple of years and the reason why I'm still pursuing more research and more facts is that there's something happening here. We need to know more and we need to do something about it. So the conversation that I'm trying to get with both the state and national bodies is that we need to keep talking about this and not bury our heads in the sand. The Professional Football Association in the UK, they've got something like £70 million in their kitty. They gave £1 million to HEADSAFE for them to put into their charity. So families who have to put their loved ones into care, because it costs a lot of money to put their loved ones into a dementia style, they've given £1 million towards that. So families can now apply to HEADSAFE to get certain amounts of money to help to pay. It sounds great, but what's that? That's a week's wages for Haaland. Got to put a lot more money.
Yeah.
And what they did with the game back in England in September, they called it the £1 billion game, because that's what they reckon is going to cost families over the next 10, 20 years. That's the cost of putting loved ones into a dementia home based on the fact that they've got CTE. And just to finish off, because I know we are running out of time, what they're also trying to do with the health people back in England is that there's two things that they're trying to do, and this is the coronal inquest with Bill and with Gordon McQueen. They want the coroner to put on that they died from football dementia, not CTE, football dementia. But what they're also doing is that when doctors start to provide a sort of a record of a person's health, so when a young child gets registered at the doctors, you take all the facts, but what they want to start putting on there now is, does that child play contact sport? Over the years, if it's shown that they're playing continually contact sport from the age of 7, 8, 9, no matter what the contact sport is, then it might give the GP a little bit more information at a later life if somebody is starting to complain about memory loss or finding real problems.
We're at 3 hours, and I think unless you boys have any more questions, I've just got one more. If they're not going to be criminally charged or whatever the term is, why are the FA trying to bury it?
I think we're talking about a game that's played in every country in the world. It is a billion dollar. I think there's a fear that the game's going to change. And I think that's... The game has to change. And if you look at it, the game has changed in the last 20 years.
Well, they're just contradicting themselves because they've changed the rules since, like you said, since 1863 till now.
Yeah. And
then now that it's with heading, it's like, well, you've added offside, you've added keepers wearing gloves, you've added every year the game changes to some extent. So what's the I don't
Is
get
there
why.
not
to be
some
fair,
criminal-
To be fair, it's only now that the science is catching up. It's only now that, and I guess people want more research. But at the moment, the research is just continuing. You're getting the same results. So I think once people adopt the fact that the science is now starting to show us what the true facts are, and that like Willie Stewart's 3 years of work shows that his research is spot on with the reasons why people are suffering. The sad thing is, and just to finish on a little bit of a sad note, in America, because it's such a major problem with CTE and with the gridiron, when the players are committing suicide, they're shooting themselves in the heart, not the brain, because they want their brains to be donated. That's a sad indication of the fact that there's a lot of things happening that we say it's wrong, which it is, so we have to do something about it.
And from the federation's perspective, if there is this science that's happening over here, is there not an element of negligence then if they
I don't think it's negligence at the moment. If in 5 years' time we're still talking about it, then I think that there's some cause for it. But I think at the moment, again, it's just people understanding that the science now is giving us... Because I said, we were the first ones that did the water recovery. We got them into the pool. People didn't know why we were doing it, but the other states started jumping in the pool thinking, well, that's a good idea. Once we understand that the science is, this is fact, and that the research, because I said, I've got 20 papers here that are continually coming up. You'll get the occasional paper which says that there's no significance link there, but there's more papers now showing that there is a link. And we as coaches, and my role as coach development person is to try and educate coaches to on the side of caution. And if it's minimizing, if all they do, and this is final word, I suppose, if all the coaches do that are listening to this, if all the coaches do is to minimize the amount of heading that they're doing in training, then they're already doing a good thing. And I think that's the positive way to finish on a chat.
Well, I just want to say from all of us here, Ian, thank you so much for your time. For all the parents, coaches, clubs that I know are listening, consider what you've just been told and really consider it and look into it more. I'm sure there's plenty of stuff online.
Short corners. And no more
Short
no more
corners.
long throws.
Can I say as well that HeadSafe and me being HeadSafe here, I'm more than happy to go to any club. And what we have is we've got 10 games that we play with the kids. 10 games that will highlight the safety factors that we're talking about. So it's all about fun. It's all about games. More than happy. And again, HeadSafe are the only group in the world that have an education program. We've got 10 games that we will come along and play with the kids to show brain health.
Can we put maybe a link in
Yeah.
the description in the YouTube? And
Definitely put a link there for those interested in that. But even the talk on the VIS and stuff, brilliant. Thank you so much for your insight, Ian. Thank you so much for your time. Guys, we'll put the link for you to check it out, especially if you want HeadSafe to get down to the clubs. The link will be in the description of this video. And while I got you one more time, 5 stars on Spotify. Thank you very much. Suited and booted. We out.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you so much.
That was awesome.
Okay.
Thanks for tuning into part 1 with our conversation with Ian Greener around HeadSafe. Make sure you guys check out the links in the description. Part 2, where we speak about VIS and all things coaching, is coming out within the coming days, so keep an eye out.